This is More Like Home by Like to Laugh on AO3, Chapter 5. Danny did love it. Far from the functional guest room he had been expecting, the room Dick took him to had already been painted a dark blue. One wall was lined with bare shelf units, already ready to be filled, and there were 3 unbuilt model rocket kits on one of the shelves, a large double bed with a simple wooden frame and a space comforter that was tucked onto the corner. There was also a desk, which had a stack of glow-in-the-dark stars ready to be placed, and a few rolled-up posters. There was more in the basket on the floor next to it, and the windows took up most of the wall, letting in evening sunlight. Danny couldn't help but think it would be easy to see the sky from anywhere in the room. It was really, really thoughtful. When had Batman seen his room? Well, while he was in the ghost zone, obviously, but why had he used that knowledge to tell someone to buy him space stuff? Dick was smiling. You like it? Bruce sent some parameters over a few hours after he told Tim you were coming home with him. I know it's all creepy-like. He went in your room and all, but he means well. I promise. It's great, Danny admitted. He dropped one of his duffel bags. Dick had the other, and then went to unroll one of the posters. Space tourism, Mars exposition. And really nice of him, considering he didn't mean to get stuck with me. There was something odd in Dick's eyes at that. After a moment, he laughed. You know, he just took me home from the circus one day, right? Jason tried to steal his tires. Tim joined him on patrol and wouldn't leave. Hell, Tim still had his parents when they met. This is always how it happens. Danny wanted to ask him what he meant by that, but he was cut off by a voice at the door. Another one? From the hall, a boy a few years younger than Danny was scowling at him, arms crossed. He looked Danny up and down with interest of an experienced fighter. And Danny could see in the way he held himself that he had training. It reminded him of Valerie and his mother. For that matter. Be nice, Damien, Dick scolded, affection leaking into his voice. He's your brother now, after all. Damien rolled his eyes. Father needs better impulse control. He looked at Danny critically. I researched your hero identity last night. It is obvious that you're untrained, lack in foresight, and obviously dependent on your metahuman abilities. It's a miracle that your identity has not been exposed. You do not even wear armor. Well, yes, but ouch. Sorry, Danny said hesitantly. I never claimed to be good at the hero thing, you know. Damien scowled harder. Like Danny's ready agreement offended him. I do not understand what Father sees in you. However, you are here now, and it would be disgraceful to allow you to continue in this manner. I will begin tutoring you in the evenings. Where did you receive what little training you do have? Danny smiled a little. You picked up on that, huh? My mom's a black belt. Karate, I think. But she definitely does some other stuff too. She taught me and Jazz when we were younger, but only for about 2 years. Haven't gotten any formal training since then. Danny made a sound of disgust. I suppose your options are limited in a rural town such as that. Danny nodded. And I'm pretty pressured for time. Ghost attacks are around the clock, and I couldn't risk one of the ghost hunters getting them first. Damien raised an eyebrow. Over letting them roam free? That's not great either, Danny admitted, but the ghost hunters make it a race. Damien nodded, like that made perfect sense to him. Father will insist on trying to teach you work-life balance, he said. He has not yet succeeded with anyone. himself included, but perhaps you'll be the exception. Danny snorted, and Damien turned and left without any further comment. Jack chuckled, unfazed by Damien's behavior. That went pretty well, he said. He never offered to teach anyone before. Really? Danny couldn't help but widen his eyes. Dick smiled at him. Nope, I think he's excited for the chance. Dick jerked his head at the door. I'll leave you alone for a bit so you can get set up. We'll be in the family room, closest to the kitchen. Everyone's here today, so we're taking the chance to play a tournament. Danny smiled at him. His nerves were frayed after all the attention of the last few days. Some time alone sounded great. Sounds cool. I'll try to show up before dinner. Dick waved over his shoulder. Danny turned to the room, considering it. He eyed the glow stars and posters thoughtfully. Then he transformed, letting the waves of energy make his body cool and weightless. This would be easier to do flying. Decorating the room settled him a little, taking the edge off of his homesickness. It was several times the size of his room at home, so there was plenty of room for all the posters, with the space left over if he wanted more. Then he moved on to the ceiling, laying out constellations the shape of the August sky. The whole process made him smile, soft and melancholy though it was. Seems like there were plenty of room to stretch out his space obsession if he wanted. He didn't think anyone except Frostbite knew about that, but if anyone could figure it out, in a couple days of knowing him, it'd probably be Batman. He felt a little more together once he was done, but still not particularly ready to face anyone. Luckily, he didn't have to. There's plenty of space for him to explore, and he could do it invisibly, intangibly, if he wanted. He flew through the door and headed out into the manor. It was good, quiet. Danny could already tell that he was going to get lost millions times over in this place, which had the sort of old money vibe he'd only seen in movies. But there was also lots of rooms that spoke clearly of family, a well-used mini library, a dance studio that had a full sound system and a shelf of lovingly curated CDs, an art gallery that didn't look professionally managed. He accidentally ducked into the kitchen and immediately regretted it when he saw Alfred, and then did it again when he stumbled across Bruce in a study. Altogether, it was nearly an hour before he ran into anyone else. New brother is here. Danny ducked back into the hall, still invisible, intangible, flying, but one of the boys just leaned over and smiled at him, eyes locking onto without hesitation. Danny flinched. Hey, we don't bite, the boy said. You having a look around, right? He's here? Dick asked, surprised. He leaned over to look with the other one, but his gaze skimmed right over Danny, as it should. Hey, Danny, done decorating? You should come join us. Well, it wasn't like he couldn't just pretend to not have come. Danny let go of his ghost form, fell back into the warmth and weight of his human half, still invisible. It made the lights flicker and the TV fuzz, and then he dropped a foot or so to the ground. Only then did he let go of his invisibility and intangibility. How did you know I was there? He asked. The boy who had spoken smiled reassuringly. I'm a meta too. I see a lot of things most people can't see. Duke, one of the girls added. One who had spoken up first, she indicated to herself. Kaz. I'm Steph, offered the other, studying him with a undisguised curiosity. Man, Bruce really does have a type, doesn't he? Black hair and blue eyes and sneaky, Dick chuckled. He sure does. To Danny, he added, don't worry, any of us would have done the same thing. Come on, there's plenty of room. There was. The seating had clearly been designed so everyone could either gather together or spread out as they pleased. Right now, Kaz, Steph, and Duke shared the couch, while Dick and Damien were on beanbags. Tim must have been busy. Danny crossed the room, claiming a beanbag, off to the side and out of the way. His wrapped burns twinged as he fell into it. He hid a wince, hand dropping over his hip. At least a couple of them caught it. Hi, he said awkwardly, bringing his knees up as a weak barrier. Sorry for butting in. Most of them laughed. Danny tried not to scowl. Seriously, Danny, this is what Bruce does, Dick said again, sounding fond. He has a problem. Anyone can tell you that. You're child number 7-ish, Duke added, a crooked grin to his mouth. Give or take a few depending on parameters. He softened. I know it's kind of hard to accept at first, especially since your parents are still kicking, but you're one of Bruce's now. He really means it. Danny's stomach twisted. Though he couldn't identify what the feeling was making it do it. I'm pretty sure he's just being responsible adult, which, I appreciate and stuff. Sure, yeah, Bruce Wayne's adoption problem was kind of famous. Sam and Tucker actually cracked jokes about it at him before, considering the adoption profile. But Danny's situation, it's just different. Bruce hadn't picked him out. He'd pretty much been forced into it. He didn't actually want Danny. Steph snorted. Damien over there owes me $50. Bruce adopted another kid before Duke graduated high school. Damien scowled. I can't believe Father is going affielded to bring another child home. But he is, Steph sang. She twisted around a grin at Danny. Hey, new kid. My dad's a supervillain too. He outgrew leaving clues behind like some shitty off-brand Riddler. He started as, so I put on a costume and did it for him. While it stung, Danny's appearance blanched attempt to reach out to him in solidarity. Hey, my parents opened a dimensional portal in our basement for no reason, so I've spent the last 2 years trying to keep ghosts and humans from killing each other. Steph let out an appreciative whistle, clapped her hands, and grinned at him, like he passed some sort of test. You'll fit right in. So, you're half ghost, right? Duke prompted, leaning forward to look at him. There was something about his eyes that was particularly intense, like all the extra he could see was reflected in them. Danny ducked his head to hide from them. An involuntary shudder rippled down his spine. He didn't like all these people knowing. How does that work? Were you born like that? Like Irma? The unexpected reference made Danny smile slightly. He shook his head. If he was born that way, his parents would have known Thomas. Damien snapped, casting Duke a disdainful look. Duke raised his hands in surrender. I don't know how ghosts work. I didn't think they were real. Right? Danny shifted uncomfortably, planting his feet firmly on the floor and glancing at the television. They'd been playing Mario Party. He could see. They paused it when he entered the room. He wished they could go back to it. I got in a lab accident, sort of. Shredded my DNA, then infused it with ectoplasm. Voila! Half ghost. That makes sense, Duke nodded. It sounds rough, though. If it's not too rude to ask, does that mean you died? He looked hesitant, with genuine concern in his eyes. Kaz and Dick both perked up too, looking equally curious. Steph glanced over. Danny fidgeted, playing with the sleeve of his t-shirt while he was staying hunched down. To be honest, he never found a satisfying answer for that, and the one he gave tended to depend on his mood at the time. What he settled on was, "That's not really a yes or no question for me. Sorry." "Don't worry about it, Danny," Duke said, a little softer. "I shouldn't have asked." Danny made a non-committal sound in the back of his throat. "You're lucky that Fenton is of a forgiving disposition." Damien sniffed, unpausing the game and forcing them to refocus. "Imagine if it had been Todd." Duke winced. "Let's not." The name rang a bell. Danny honestly didn't really follow the Wayne family, and he hadn't had a chance to research in the last day or so. "Todd?" "Jason," Dick clarified. "You'll meet him later. He's coming for dinner to, quote, see the poor sod Bruce dragged in this time." Sniff snorted. Danny muffled one too. Dick chuckled. "Yeah, anyways, don't bring it up unless he does, but Jason also died." Dick kept his smile, but it took on a strained quality. That said, it was a touchy subject for Jason. He came back eventually, but it wasn't pretty. Danny nodded in understanding. "I won't bring it up," he promised. "Let's talk about Danny's rogues gallery instead," Steph suggested, flicking her controller to roll the dice. "They look like fun." They moved on then. The current round of Mario Party lasted for half an hour, and they didn't have time for another, so they switched to Mario Kart. Danny got a controller and got his ass kicked a couple of times before Alfred came to call them in all for dinner. Barbecued ribs, which suddenly seemed embarrassingly unfit for a place like this. They were amazing, though, and everyone seemed pretty happy with them. And the spread of side dishes didn't go with it. "Yours are different," Danny noted, glancing at Damien's plate. "Vegan or vegetarian?" Danny raised an eyebrow, then nodded. "Vegetarian. However, I prefer not to consume animal products either if alternatives are available. Alfred has become quite skilled with using substitutes." Danny considered asking some follow-up questions. Sam always looked out for vegan recommendations and would be able to afford whatever Damien suggested. When he heard the front door slam, too quiet for humans to hear, Jason must have arrived. A minute later, Alfred reappeared. He quietly had eyes on the entryway or something. The door banged open, but didn't slam. That was impressive amount of control. "Hey, Alfred," Jason said, his voice flippant. But his eyes were already scanning the table, locking onto Danny. Danny ducked his head. "Sorry I'm late and all." "It's a pleasure to have you here, Master Jason." Alfred's soft look said he meant it. Jason's stiff shrug said he wasn't so sure. Jason's place had already been set, though. He made his way to it fluidly, sat down, catty-cornered to Danny, and met his eyes without touching his food. His brows furrowed. Danny's did, too. In the beginning, the first time he met Val, he hadn't been able to tell the difference between liminal humans and a normal one. Vlad hadn't even registered to him, but his ghost sense had grown since then, and he had become more sensitive to ectoplasm around him. These days, he could even direct pockets of purified ectoplasm if he was looking for it. Jason didn't feel like a full ghost, or even a half-a. If Jason had to match it with something, he said Jason felt most like a blob, a gathering of ectoplasm without a template, except Jason was still alive, obviously. Did that make Jason's living body the core? Jason's furrowed brow indicated that he was sensing something off Danny too. Maybe he was just looking for something to match to what he already knew. Whatever Jason was thinking, what he said was, "So B decided to pick up a kid that was already dead this time, huh?" Bruce coughed. Dick choked. Tim dropped his fork. Even Steph stared at Jason indiscriminately. Danny cocked his head, considering Jason for a moment, then snickered. He rubbed the back of his neck and then remembered that his hands were dirty and shrugged instead, grabbing a napkin, wiping them off. I mean, all things considered, the only way he could have put me in more danger if he actually gave me to the GIW. And hey, he didn't do that, so I think things went pretty well. Jason snorted, but something about Danny's response made him relax, and he started picking at his food. What kind of shithole did he take you from for it to be safer to be a kid vigilante in Gotham? Danny tried to ignore the way that made his chest twinge. There's no ghost hunters in Gotham, right? That means I'm like 1,000% less likely to get vivisected here. Jason's mouth went flat, green creeping into his eyes. And Danny said quickly, "Not that was ever likely. They'd have to catch me first, and I think I've been proving that they're not good at that." That was interesting. He hasn't registered it until the flare of anger. But there was something clinging to Jason's ectoplasm, traces of magic, like he had seen from Constantine, but darker and spookier, a curse. He kind of wanted to ask Clockwork about it. Or, more realistically, frostbite. Jason pointed his fork at Bruce. "You get a pass this time, old man." Bruce sighed, but chose not to respond, focusing on his food. Jason scowled at him, but didn't call him out again. He took a few slow, careful breaths, forcing the green tinge to recede, and then returned his attention to Danny. He had the same sharp detective's gaze as Dick Tim. "How did you get in the game, then?" he asked. Danny shrugged. "How does anyone? They found me first. All my rogues are ghosts, so I was the best match for them." No, I've watched those videos," Steph objected. "I nominate ghost hunters as rogues too, every single one of them. You were way too nice to them." "Seconded," Tim said, "especially after that lab footage." "Red's not so bad," Danny muttered, playing with one of the stripped bones so he wouldn't have to look at anyone as familiar mix of frustration, embarrassment, and disappointment crept into his spine. At least she could prioritize who the fight when things got serious. That was, unfortunately, not a skill his parents ever had acquired. His back stung. "Oh, so like the bare minimum," she scoffed. Danny scowled at his plate. "I didn't look for footage. That bad?" Jason asked, raising an eyebrow. "I watched 3 compilation videos titled Ghost Hunters Shooting Phantom in the Back," Steph said. Despite her light tone, her smirk was mean and her eyes hard. "One of them featured a harpoon. It was an 8-part series." The harpoon. Just the mention made Danny wince, roll his shoulder as the memory made his side twinge. He could see both Dick and Bruce catch the movement, their eyes darting to follow it. He forced himself to still. "I observed several instances of Phantom being ambushed by hunters while injured." Damien contributed, disapproval undercutting his voice. "Such pathetic tactics prove their incompetence." The lab footage contained 47 instances of Danny sneaking into the lab to free ghosts before they could be vivisected, Tim contributed. 8 of them were rogues. Most of them hugged him when he showed up, and there were 21 instances of Daz sneaking in to dismantle weapons. Making Danny sad, Cass cut in, bringing a pointed end to the barrage of Danny's tales of woe. That brought all eyes to him, though Danny couldn't bring himself to look up. Normally, this was where he would crack a joke to play it off, make it seem not so bad, but under the circumstances, yeah, he wasn't really feeling up to it. He's pretty sure they wouldn't believe him anyways. Sorry, baby spook, Dick said last, sounding genuinely remorseful. We see a lot of messed up stuff working in Gotham, but this level of one-sided hostility is new to us. You did a great job keeping your head in the game despite all the backstabbing. Danny managed to smile. Thanks, someone had to. There'll be no friendly fire in Gotham City, Bruce said unexpectedly. He looked irritated just at that thought. The Gotham Knights have worked cooperatively with the GCPD since the formation of the Justice League. They won't fire on any known Bath affiliate, nor will they participate in any attempt to apprehend one. Commissioner Gordon will ensure it. I got falsely arrested in my mask exactly once before B put the fear of God into them, Duke added, a trace of mirth in his voice. Hasn't happened since. He'll be able to protect you too. Danny bit his lip. Wouldn't they get in trouble for helping me? Won't you? They won't be able to openly defy federal agents, Bruce acknowledged. Duke's eyes narrowed. Bruce made a sign that Danny soon meant, I'll explain later or something. Duke just nodded. But they don't need to help them either. Steph raised a hand and waved it around a bit. Sorry, but what are we talking about? Why are the feds coming for Danny? It's illegal to be a ghost, Tim explained. Danny tensed, ducking his head down again as if to hide from the attention. Or harbor a ghost. Or impede the capture of a ghost. Complete violation of the Metahuman Protections Act. Babs and I are still gathering information, but it'll take time to act on. Maybe a publicity complaint? There aren't enough precedent for the interdimensional beings that they're focused on aliens. They were implying, cool, we're going to break the law again? Jason said. He didn't seem bothered by the idea. A smirk curved his mouth. We don't do that often enough. You're a crime lord, Jason, Duke pointed out. Yeah, but this is different. This is B. Jason smirked at Bruce, who looked long-suffering again. Danny wasn't sure how to feel about this. He wanted to believe it, but he also couldn't bring himself to convince that this city where most people have never met ghosts would be the exception when it came to him. What if Commissioner Gordon believes them that ghosts are evil? I'll introduce you if necessary, Bruce said. He trusts my judgment. And okay, if he says so. And we'll know as soon as they enter the city, Tim added, studying him briefly. Babs, Oracle knows what to look for, and we got alerts set up too. You're not going to get dragged into a lab, okay? We won't allow it. Danny focused the lines of his expression to soften and nodded mutely. Okay. He ignored the looks a few of them were exchanged